You have a great opportunity right now to take some fantastic prices. If you haven't done anything yet, please at least start moving 50% of last year's production.
Ladies and gentlemen, farmers, ranchers, and distinguished guests, thank you for listening to the Farm4Profit podcast, where we discuss the latest ideas, methods, trends, and techniques available to help your farm achieve higher levels of farm profitability. The Farm4Profit podcast is co-hosted by Tanner Winterhoff, the Iowa Bankerman, and David Whitaker, the Iowa Land Guy, where in tandem they will share their ideas and advice from industry experts. Thank you again for listening to the Farm4Profit podcast. Remember, if you aren't farming for profit, you won't be farming for long. And now, here's Tanner and David.
Hey listeners, welcome back to the Farm4Profit podcast. This is Tanner Winterhoff.
This is Corey Hillebo.
And Dave is hanging out here with us as well. But we wanted to get in here and have a conversation with you and share a really good conversation that we had down at the National Farm Machinery Show. But don't forget, listeners, this is a Farm4Profit episode. Those of you that have been with us, you know next week will be a Farm for Fun show in the queue. But if this is your first time, we'll have a What's Working in Ag segment followed by a general topic to help your farm achieve higher levels of profitability. And next week, it's a little bit more relaxed, a little bit less of a format structure.
Yeah, more of a happy hour conversation.
Yeah. Otherwise, if you have any topics, ideas, guests, suggestions, send them to farm4profitllc@gmail.com. That's the number 4, so farm4profitllc@gmail.com. Also, find us on social media and all platforms where you find the podcast and leave us a review.
Absolutely. Today's review is brought to you by BW Fusion. They have all the microbiologicals.
Yes. I'm glad I'm not the only one that struggles saying that word.
Check out them. They're awesome. They got great stuff. They don't just sell you snake oil. And
bw-fusion.com.
The Bodie and Brody duo. They're awesome.
So what is our listener review for the week, Corey?
So our listener review comes off of TikTok, actually. And it's Creek Jumper 02. It says, best podcast for farming, hands down.
All right. Let's put 2 hands up.
Right to the point. Thank you for that review.
Absolutely. So, yes, we're down here at the National Farm Machinery Show, and we are going to jump into a conversation that we have previously recorded with Todd Hultman of DTN, where we explore what his take is on the commodity market and a little bit of the pressures coming our way.
Crazy times right now.
Let's listen in. All right. Welcome back to another What's Working in Ag segment. We are down here at the National Farm Machinery Show in 2022, sitting here in the Sukup manufacturing booth. But we know very clearly that we can't get grain into the bins until we get grain out of the field. So I'm excited to talk to our guest today. So we have Bill Dickhut with Geringhoff with us today. Welcome.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for having me on.
And I think this is probably the furthest we've had a guest travel to record live with us.
Yeah, just to be here. That's the only reason he came.
Just to come be on the podcast.
Yeah, of course.
How long was the flight?
The flight was to Minneapolis, Minnesota, so it was about 8 hours from Germany.
Okay.
Or from Amsterdam.
Okay, that's not quite as bad as I was expecting, but still long enough to take a nap.
2 naps, actually.
Bill, let's get
only short ones.
Let's get a little background. Where are you from, and what do you do for Geringhoff?
Well, I was born in Kankakee, Illinois. Lived in Shabance, Illinois, about 4 miles out of town, in the cornfields, actually. Moved to Tennessee when I was 11 with my family, of course. Went to school in Kentucky, also in London. Did a couple of years of work in the States. Moved over to Germany, did a tool and die maker training apprenticeship in Germany, and did a number of different jobs. And now I'm with the company Geringhoff for a few years in the position of Chief Operating Officer. So for the global manufacturing and supply chain and quality and planning, but also for the United States, tying in the many disciplines, and for the U.S. business as the president of Geringhoff LLC, which is the U.S. Geringhoff organization.
All right.
Geringhoff's been a proud partner with us for a while.
Yes.
And he even brought us some snacks from Germany.
You said
how do you say that?
It was
Ferrero Küsschen.
Yes, and they're milk chocolates with hazelnut.
With hazelnut and hazelnut chocolate cream.
Ooh, I cannot wait to open those up.
Yep.
You guys might not get any.
I'll come by later, see if they're gone.
They will be. Absolutely.
Yep.
So we wanted to talk in this What's Working in Ag segment about what's working at Geringhoff. And we all know that we've had some supply chain strains due to the pandemic. But from what I know and from what I've been made aware of, Geringhoff has worked really hard to make sure that there isn't an issue with the production of your product.
Well, that's our job. I mean, we've been in business since 1880, and certain parts of our culture allow us to maybe go the extra mile, because what we're there for is to build the machines for our customers. And that means getting the parts. I mean, at some point you get pretty good at building machines without parts, but you need to have the parts to finish the machines out. So we've been creative. We've been working with our suppliers and, working as a partner to help them be successful with us and help them go through their own supply chains and see where we can help so that they can increase their capacities. Manufacturing, we're working on increasing our own team, building it out in quantity and quality, as well as finding better ways to do things. And we're working on ourselves every day, trying to remember what's important and what we're there for. And we're there for building machines for our customers. And we're there to focus our energy to accomplish that task, to overcome the challenges with our capability and competency and energy and creativity to overcome those challenges and deliver the machine to our customer. And that's one of the reasons why Geringhoff has been in business since 1880. And that's one of the reasons why we're looking forward to the next 140 years.
That really makes them head of the class. I mean,
No matter the crop.
right now it is hard to get things in general. And then inside the agricultural sector, it's also difficult. So to know that someone can have an interest in the Geringhoff head and then place their order and know they're going to get it without a wish-wash type answer.
What's the
is
timeline?
big.
If I order a head today, when would I have it?
Well, we'd have to take a look at that specifically, what type of head, and base that against our production in Germany, or if it's in our production in the United States.
Yep.
But generally, we would say to harvest, you're going to have your head, and that's going to depend on when you have your harvest.
Right.
Yeah.
And if we can do that. And we also need to be careful that we don't just take orders and promise the world.
That's true.
But that we're always honest with our customers and let them know what's going on within our supply chain. And a lot of things that we see now, they're ambiguous. That we don't know what the future holds. A lot of things can still happen.
Yeah.
But the only thing that I know that I can promise to everyone is that we're going to do our work and work hard and focus our energy, our creativity, and our competency to get the job done and get the head to our customer.
Hey, it sounds like the Farm4Profit podcast.
Absolutely. You want to be a host? I've got a question on these combines are getting huge. I mean,
Oh, yeah,
X9,
You
the
walk
Fendt
around
Ideal,
down here, yeah.
and we're sitting in the one of them doesn't even have a steering wheel in it. These things can combine so many bushels an hour. Are we having a problem with capacity? Like
So-
getting the crop in?
Well, yeah, to some extent. I mean, it depends on. It's a chain. So everything feeds into the next part. The head feeds into the combine feeds into the grain buggies, the grain carts feed into the semi feeds into the silos. So you have to have everything matched up correctly. And if you've got 1,000 horsepower on your car and you can't bring the power to the track,
Yep.
to the tarmac, you're going to spin your wheels.
Yep.
And so if you have these large 10 series combines, talk about the AGCO 10T or the Fendt 10T, the Claas 8000 series, also the new flagship John Deere X9, compared to, let's say, the old flagship, the S790. Is your mouth big enough to feed that combine? And a lot of OEMs, they've got great equipment, no doubt about it, but do they also have that head to feed the combine? And in some cases they may not. Yeah. And that's where Geringhoff has a wide product offering to be able to feed those combines. One example, a 10 series head, the X9 with a 24-row Geringhoff actually harvested twice as much as the S790.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's going to be the question, what does that mean? Well, it also means that labor.
Yeah.
Also at the farms, there's a big difficulty in getting labor. So if you have one combine, that means you need one operator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the secret sauce in that? Like, what makes the Geringhoff feed that combine so much better?
Well, there's a number of different reasons. We've been building 24 rows past probably 15 years.
And you guys are the
12
first to do
years.
that.
Well, I don't know about that. I could imagine that.
Yeah.
We also have a 32 row in our offering. Also, the next set, which you guys have seen, that's also a 30 row 20 inch.
That is another monster machine.
Yeah, but it depends on a number of different things. So you have your residue management that limits you on your horsepower on your drive line. But if you have different residue management systems, you also have the opportunity to decrease the amount of energy on your drive line. And if you have high quality gearboxes and drive lines, direct drive lines like Geringhoff does, then you don't need as much horsepower to feed the beast.
So then you can use that horsepower to thresh and get the bushels per hour that it's supposed to.
Correct. And that's a limiting factor. Another limiting factor, do you have the design? Can you build the frame for it to hold those wide heads? Can you also have all of the variability, 20-inch rows, 15-inch rows, 22-inch rows?
I was going to say, Tanner, when we talk what's working in ag, the reason, and talking with Bill before, the reason that Geringhoff is so successful is, and why it's working is because they build it to work for you. When we say no matter the crop, it's no matter what your operation is. If you're on a hillside and you need the flex with 12-inch, they got it. If you need 20-inch rows, 30-inch rows, you want it this wide, that wide, it's kind of custom. And so when we talk what's working in ag, that's why it's working.
Especially when you look at the Nexat.
That's what I want.
That was that was a custom project. You guys worked specifically with them to build and design that to fit the machine that they created and now want to continue to grow.
Yeah. Well, Geringhoff has a long history of being innovators and also working with partners in the industry, even OEMs, to create solutions for our customers. The Nexat, that's very interesting. Everybody's seen it. A lot of clicks, a lot of views, wonderful videos, interesting platform. With a tracked bridge type combine that can also do a number of other functions. And yes, we did work directly with Nexat to develop that head for them, and that's a 30-row 20-inch head. So that's a very wide head. I think they've got 2 diesel engines in there, 500 horse each.
Yeah.
They're looking at going to the next generation, which is hydrogen or electrical, also autonomous. But then you see, well, it's a great idea, but also in the posts, you've seen a lot of answers. Well, that's not going to fit on my farm, right? And so it gets back to the question, what's your operation? What's your field? Every field is different. Every harvest is different. Mm-hmm. And so you need to have a solution for that. That Nexat is great for large areas. Yeah. Large areas. But also with the class 10 class combines, you can do large areas, and now we also have an articulated corn head that actually flexes in the middle, so that even with a 16 row, you can go and clean up your fields without having to change your head over.
Yep. It's neat to see the advancement in technology that Geringhoff puts into a piece that can be forgotten about, but is one of the most important. Just like you said, if you can't eat the crop fast enough, you can't get it into the throat of the combine, you're wasting the capacity of your machine.
Exactly. You're spinning your wheels.
So that's what we've got on our
money.
It is. And that's what's working for us in this What's Working in Ag segment, is the fact that Geringhoff takes pride in trying to continue to better themselves as a company and managing the supply chain to get you the product that you order along the timeline as much as they can control themselves, but ultimately designing and continuing to evolve the header that can make your operation and your machine run more efficiently.
Absolutely. Have you seen the Nexat? Have you been up in person?
No, I haven't seen it in person. I have seen some of the production on that, but it is an impressive piece of equipment. And I believe if you keep your eyes open, you're going to see the next information in the internet and in social media.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you in person. It's always a pleasure to have a conversation with you, but thank you for stopping by here at the National Farm Machinery Show. And listeners, that was another great What's Working in Ag segment.
Okay. It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. They're minimizing risks on your farm, helping you improve your yields, and increasing your profit margins In today's farming operations, the data is the key to achieving all of this, Dave.
It's no secret that data has been helping more and more farmers gain ground in their operation, and there's no better way to manage all of that data than through John Deere's Operations Center. As a leading farm management platform, John Deere is constantly and continuously fine-tuning the features in Operations Center to make it easier, faster for you to analyze all of that farm data.
Yeah, and within that Operations Center, you can collect and analyze all of your machine, field, and crop data year after year, so you can make those data-driven decisions for your operation. You can set up field instructions for your machine operators, then push those instructions directly to that in-cab display straight from that Operations Center. Then your operators don't have to enter this information when they get to the field.
That is so cool. And with near real-time monitoring with the Operations Center, you can track the machine performance, the field work, and stay ahead of all the logistics to ensure the right work is being done at the right time. With all that yield data in Operations Center, you can analyze your total farm operations performance and make any changes for an even better next year.
And John Deere continues to make their Operations Centers your go-to place to gain ground in your operation. It's free to use. Just create an account at operationscenter.deere.com or download the mobile apps from the Apple app or Google Play stores. You can also see your local John Deere dealer for more information. Thank you to John Deere for being a proud partner of the Farm4Profit podcast. Now it's time for our general topic here. We're going to discuss commodities. We've had I'm not even going to call it turmoil, just a lot of variabilities that have gone into the marketplace now that our listeners are trying to figure out where we're headed. So we are blessed to have Todd Hultman here. He began his career as a broker with Delta Futures Group in Omaha, where he relied on DTN's news and market quotes. But in 1997, he left that brokerage business with a desire to spend more time researching the futures markets and educating others, which is what we're here to do today, Dave. This move led him to the creation of an online educational resource for future traders. That same strong interest in research is here with Todd from DTN at the National Farm Machinery Show. He enjoys commenting on the grain markets. He's a graduate of the University of Nebraska in Omaha. We're not going to hold that against him. And he's lived in the Omaha area for most of his life. So welcome, Todd. Thanks for joining us on the Farm4Profit podcast.
Thank you, and thank you for publicly shaming me to be here today.
And so, Tanner, just for all of our listeners, we are here at the Sukup booth at the National Farm Machinery Show, and DTN is also here, and that's where Todd's coming to us from. And so, Todd, tell us a little bit about your tie to agriculture. Where'd you start, and how'd you get here?
I was a first-generation town kid in our family. So what that meant was during the summers, I got to go to the grandparents' farm and work all summer on the farm. So I kind of have one foot in both worlds. And so I got a great appreciation for the work that it takes to get on the farm. We used to walk the beans and do everything that you did. And back then, it was a farm that had a little bit of everything. It was row crops and cattle. And
so do you actively farm now?
No.
Okay.
No. The family is... moved on. It got older. The farm is gone. And my life as a town kid went on. And obviously I went on and had an interest in learning about markets and economics. And that's what took me to UNO. But I think the interesting thing in my career that kind of brought me here, there was a fork in the road right after college. And I thought, I am interested in markets. The logical thing is to go get do grad work in economics. And I was all signed up and close to making that move. But something inside just said, there's something about academics that are just not getting markets. And I want a more practical approach. I want to learn it from the inside out in a more practical way, what markets are actually about. And so I decided to go a different route, and that's what led me to the commodity brokerage. And it was actually a great place to learn because I could sit there in that fishbowl of tension every day, seeing people act in the markets and buy and sell under stress and pressure and different changing conditions and get a sense for how their behavior. And there was a lot more to the market, obviously, than just the supply and demand curves and all those normal factors.
So, Tanner, Todd just told us he's in a fishbowl, decided to jump into the most volatile market ever, but he went and got a degree for it. Okay, great. So we got your background. So what are we seeing? Where are the markets now? All the farmers, our listeners would love to know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, well, the classic line is this is unprecedented times. And how many times have we heard that?
Yep.
Yeah. And I found a T-shirt that said, "I miss precedented times." And I think that describes a lot of our feelings right now. Still, the big background picture is we're still suffering from the pandemic. Our economy took big hits. Our oil production took big hits. Our labor force is not back 100% to pre-pandemic levels yet. We're seeing all kinds of logistical problems. The auto industry is a mess. People still having problems getting parts. Obviously, the fertilizer market is all messed up. And the closest thing to an economic picture I can think of this, it's almost like a wartime economy in the sense that the production side of the market has taken a big hit. And yet demand is reviving very quickly and coming back very strong. But it's a lot easier to shut the lights out, lay off people, and shut down production than it is to bring it all back again. And that's, we're in this very awkward, clumsy, frustrating part of a rebound, and we are making progress, but it's tough to see. And of course, we're seeing rising energy prices, we're seeing lots of prices messed up, but most difficult, I think, for the farm situation is the supply disruptions.
Yeah, that you're here and have the opportunity to present on the main stage. I'm going to call it the main stage at the National Farm Machinery Show, which is great to share just what you already unpacked, because I did not expect you to start off that way, but I'm sitting here nodding my head up and down the whole time while you're talking about that. What are some key factors that you could see coming up in the future that might affect it one way or the other? Either we keep riding this train up in a bull market, or what could send it off the rails? Start with the bull market option.
Well, overall, I am largely long-term optimistic.
Okay.
We're going to pull out of this. We are going to pull out of this. Not only are the coronavirus numbers coming down this month, which is immensely helpful, and when you think of the unemployment problems, think of the difficulty it is navigating the interactions of a city where a lot of these supply chains go through. When coronavirus is a threat, they don't want to get on the subway, they don't want to get on the bus. You don't have that healthy go-getting interaction that we need for an economy to thrive. We are seeing very positive numbers come back on the labor force, where during the pandemic, we lost 25 million jobs almost overnight. I mean, biggest hit probably since World War II. We are back to within less than 2 million of that. So we've seen a big comeback, but we still need more.
Right.
On the energy price side, our oil production is still down about 1.5 million barrels a day from where it was before the pandemic. You know, people forget we had that negative $40 crude oil price in 2020. That hammered our U.S. oil industry. Saudi Arabia kicked us when we were down. They added to production right after the pandemic came out. They saw a chance to hurt the U.S. oil industry, and they took advantage of it. We had over 100 North American bankruptcies of oil and gas companies in 2020. It's not easy to get that production back, and that's what we're seeing as a struggle on the energy side. And then you add to that worldwide, OPEC's production's coming back slowly. Russia is a big question mark right now.
We'll get to that more. Yeah,
really been driving those crude prices up, around $95 now. So those are obviously very tough headwinds for the economy and make farming difficult.
Yeah, that's interesting that so far we've talked about things that aren't directly in agriculture, but have such a huge impact on the things that happen in agriculture, Dave.
And one of the things that I haven't looked at in the past as much, Tanner, but I've been looking at a whole lot more is all kinds of foreign trade, and not just what's going on in the U.S. When we look at the global picture, we saw weather patterns in South America change last week to where we think that grain opportunities might be less there. I know in the years past, from 2020 to 21, we were talking about China and swine flu, and after swine flu came through, now we have a larger demand. They are going to have a demand for feed, and so a lot more rows from the United States and North America are actually traveling that direction. Do you have an outlook just with global trade?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, China's been the big bull market story of the past 2 decades at least, and no doubt about that, and their demand for meal and their desire for more protein in the diet, as they have become a much wealthier nation than they were 30 years ago. So that continues to drive things, no doubt about that. The African swine fever was a bit of a hiccup in there. we had an interesting happen this fall. Just as it was the U.S. turn to start picking up soybean export sales, China's soybean and meal prices started to break lower. And I didn't know what exactly was going on, and I thought at the time that, well, maybe they're still having problems with swine fever and their meal demand has backed off to correct a bit. Now, I can't help but wondering, China being China, did they take advantage of, and we had the excuse of the electricity shortage, so they were shutting down soybean crush plants. Well, it's just interesting to me that they kind of engineered a time of slower soybean demand, just as it was the U.S. turn to sell beans. And guess what? That's largely changed now.
Yep.
Now that it's Brazil's turn, their prices are back up. The demand's up. Not only are their prices up, their soybean prices are hitting their highest levels in 9 years in China right now. So their demand is on fire. I think I have to suspect that perhaps initially they made a decision to cool off their demand at a time when South American crops were looking good very early in November. They were off to a good start. They got their beans planted early. Crop conditions were good. And China dialed back their demand. And I have to suspect, is that engineered or not? So, without getting too crazy on the conspiracy theories.
Well,
we've all got them.
Yeah, okay.
And Tanner, one of the things Todd said, I've been hearing as well. And so when they had the swine flu, they're having a larger demand for protein. So once you eat a good steak, you probably don't want to go back to eating rice,
pork chops,
or go. So as they produce more and get to be more of a wealthy company, the demand is, I think, going to go stronger because people don't want, after you drive a Platinum pickup, you don't want to go back to the XLT. It just doesn't work.
Right.
You want to stay in that same level. So I think there's going to be continued demand. What about Russia? We talked about Russia earlier. I've been hearing all kind of scuttlebutt around social media right now that, of course, they're lining up on the border and backing off. And where are you seeing it there, if you watch that more than we do?
It's been a real annoying distraction, actually, to have the Ukraine threat happening the past month. It seemed to really pick up in January, the attention and focus on that. But as far as I can tell, just trying to be an objective observer, it seems to me that Putin is getting a lot of what he wants by just being a threat. And I don't know that he has a real strong incentive to go in and actually invade Ukraine and take on all the sanctions and the repercussions that might come from that. But just kind of holding people hostage right now, seeing the crude oil prices rise just on fear in the markets. And it's also been a bullish factor in our grain markets. It's added another bullish factor to the corn and the bean. And of course, the wheat is the obvious one in the Black Sea region. But, our grains aren't just feedstocks anymore. They're also sources of energy.
Fuel stocks, yeah.
Yeah, and that's where it's really had influence from that rising crude oil price.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Obviously, we're recording this at the National Farm Machinery Show. By the time our listeners get to hear this, we're going to have a lot more news on where this is shaping up to be. But it's just fascinating to me as a host of the podcast that we don't know what we don't know. And all of a sudden a new headline pops out and the market reacts. All it took was a headline.
Yeah.
And it completely jumped up. People switched positions. We had a lot of traders getting in there either to protect themselves or ready to ride the market up.
Yeah.
It's always a benefit for us to think outside of our backyard. And to really look at this on a global space. So what's another thing in your presentation today that you plan on sharing that you think is going to be really valuable for our listeners that can't be here to hear you?
Well, basically, I'm going to explain to them the risk in the market. But before I get into that, you raised such an important point there. And I think because this is our first time getting acquainted, you should know that my practical view of the markets, not just being supply and demand curves, to me, markets are people. Mm-hmm. People are emotional, and you're right. We respond to headlines, we respond to fears, we respond to what ifs, and you see that amplified and exaggerated in the market all the time. And it drives a lot of us crazy, and especially for people who want markets to behave rationally, as we were taught in college, they're supposed to, but the reality is they don't. And so you cannot take the people aspect out of the markets, and there is a lot of room for excess and emotional excess, and sometimes we worry too much, and sometimes we're a little late worrying about real things. So that has been a challenge my entire career.
Tanner, he
Trying
stole
to
my
assess-
line all day long.
Listen, what Dave says it all the time.
Markets are attitude. And when the attitude's strong, the grain prices are strong, the cattle market's strong. Markets are an attitude.
Yeah.
So before you get into your point, I know I asked for your point, and I'm not going to let you tell your point. But I want to play off that emotion side, because I know we have a significant number of listeners that have seller's remorse right now. They sold too early, sold too cheap. It was the highest price we'd seen in years, so they sold.
Yeah.
And then they went higher.
Yeah.
What can you say to them right now to make them feel better about themselves, or maybe give them some advice to help correct that position?
Well, first of all, I share in some of that remorse myself, especially in 2020 in the fall when prices were getting to $4 and $5 level, and our supply and demand estimates still looked very large for corn early on. We did not realize just how big China was going to come in and buy. Sometimes you cannot judge the quality of your decision by the outcome of the market, because you cannot be held responsible for knowing what you don't know. It's just like playing poker, and I always come back to the gambling analogy, because there's always a factor of uncertainty in the markets. So you know the cards that you're holding, you know the production you had, you just came out of one of the world's worst pandemics in 2020, you're sitting there in the fall, you're seeing prices rise shortly after harvest time, and it's hard not to believe that, you know what, if I can actually get out of this hand and make money, this seems like a great thing to do, not realizing that corn was about to go to $7. And frankly, we had no help from official supply and demand estimates. They were behind, and frankly, that's something I keep relearning in my career, is that overall, the fundamental stats that we see, and whether it's USDA estimates or even our own private estimates, they're often in the rearview mirror.
Yep.
They do not tell us about what is in front of us, and that's what's tough.
Tanner, just like me selling farmland, everybody wants a quote and an appraisal of what that farm's worth. We always use data in the past, but if the market's hot like it is right now, who would have guessed it went up 37%? I mean, that's just crazy, you know.
Yeah, same thing in banking. We use historical financials to base our lending decisions off of. So before we wrap up, we're going to ask you for your prediction for the future. We like to ask our guests that it's an opinion. It doesn't have to be right, but we'll get a prediction out of you. But I want to go back to the question I didn't let you answer. So what's something that you plan on sharing with the group today when you speak on stage?
So basically, I realize that they have a poker game sitting in front of them. And I'm going to point out that, for instance, in the case of soybeans, if you just look strictly at the supply and demand estimates, it justifies roughly an $11 cash soybean price. Now, we're obviously trading above $11. We've got weather premium in there from South America, and we have a fear premium in there from Ukraine.
Fear premium. I like that.
Yeah. Now, we're in an emotional game. We don't know. We have uncertainty about how things are going to turn out. There's no way you can predict how these things are going to turn out, unless you have a hotline to Putin, or he's, going to let you on a secret. So we're playing a big game of uncertainty. But right now, guess what? We're getting corn prices above $6, bean prices around $15 or higher, depending on the day you look at it. These are not prices to be ashamed of taking. Let me leave you with one little stat here. In the S&P 500, I should say, in corn and beans, if you look at last year's production cost estimates from USDA nationally, we're looking at roughly 50% return on that production cost. Now, this is a little apples and oranges comparison, but if we look at the S&P 500 companies, how many of those 500 of the country's best companies do you think are getting a 50% or better return on investment the past 12 months?
I know you're setting me up, so
Of course I am.
50%?
How about 10 out of 500 companies?
Oh, that's not even a percentage.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, guys, do not overlook the fact that corn and bean prices at their highest levels in 8 or 9 years are offering a fantastic opportunity. You have a lot of uncertainty ahead of you, my advice is, at least start phasing out some sales, reduce your risk, take advantage of some of the prices we're getting offered.
Now, Todd, the farmer's going to argue with you, Tanner, Corey, everybody. The argument is going to be money's made in the margins. I say it all the time on our podcast. And although the income, the gross income looks good, $6 corn, $12 beans, $15 beans, whatever they're going to be. Corey, what are you paying for fertilizer right now on your? I mean, what is the margin per acre? Are we like 50? Where are we at per acre versus what the inputs and the output is?
Every farm's different, right? You got to say that.
Of course,
we were lucky to procure our fertilizer early last fall.
Hallelujah.
That was high, but not where it is now.
Yeah.
It's doubled where we paid now, and so margins actually. I think we're going to make. I think we made more money last year than we'll make this year.
I agree. I think every farmer is going to make more money last year than this year. It was just historically a high margin, high farm income across the board. But as long as we watch the market and make those sound decisions, Tanner and I always talk about having a decision-making team to have a board to go to. So it's not just you. So Tanner, I'll recall that to all of our listeners is, it's not just you. Get your friends involved, get your family involved, etc.
Yeah, and get some professionals involved.
Yep.
Absolutely. So I assume there's going to be another key point in your presentation today. So everybody has a closing statement. Before we transition into a couple of weather questions that I know you might have cheated and grabbed your cohort's notes to help us out with, because I know you're not the weather guy. But with that, what's the wrap-up comment that you have for the people that are going to come watch you today?
Well, actually, Tanner, I think I just gave it. And that,
oh, good.
And that is, you have a great opportunity right now to take some fantastic prices. If you haven't done anything yet, please at least start moving 50% of last year's production. You need to reward the market as you get these higher price opportunities. And that's not to say beans can't go. I do think beans have reason to go higher. But it's an uncertain environment. And so reduce your risk as you get these opportunities higher and higher.
Is there any triggers that you see that could tank the market?
Oh, good call. I forgot to ask the I asked the upside.
I mean, we asked the upside, but we didn't add the negative. I mean, we talked about Russia a little bit, but there was a fear factor in there for price. But is there any other big triggers that we're looking at looking forward?
Yeah, I think the big thing is if Russia settles, they all sing Kumbaya and back off the troops. That definitely has a bit of a tanking effect on the market. If the second corn crop in Brazil turns out to be pretty decent, which right now I think the bias is that it's going to be dry and short its usual yields.
Okay.
But that certainly would have an impact that would settle things down for a while.
Okay, so now let's transition into the weather side. Again, you're not the meteorologist. Not going to put you on the spot for that, but weather's going to impact the markets, and we haven't talked about that a lot. So what do you see from the weather standpoint, both in the U.S. and worldwide?
Yes. So, of course, right now the market's focused on South America, and so we're still trying to debate how big are the crops going to be in Brazil and Argentina, and frankly, they've taken a bigger hit than I expected earlier this year that they have. So they're still haggling that out. But right now we're in this La Nina pattern where central and northern Brazil gets lots of consistent rain, and they're trying to work through a harvest in those conditions, while southern Brazil and Argentina have had much drier conditions. And so far, there's really no change in the La Nina pattern as of yet. Looking a couple weeks out, there may be some rain chances developing, but it's still quite iffy now. And in my mind, anytime you go past 7 days, it gets less and less confident on that weather outlook. So that seems to be where that is right now for South America. In the U.S., we still have this western U.S. drought hanging on very seriously. It's encroached into the southwestern plains more, so that Kansas City wheat, I think, is going to have problems this spring. There is a bit of better rain chance in the extended forecast, the 8 to 14 day period for the southwestern plains. But right now, it's the SRW wheat crop that's getting all the rain, and the spring wheat area and the Kansas City wheat is not doing as well.
Yeah, where we're from in Iowa, we've got concerns of pipes freezing because we've got cracks that you can stick your hand down through, and obviously that that allows that cold to get down there. We haven't had to worry about that for quite some time. So I think we're living part of that dry area and dry spell, Dave.
Yeah.
I think so. Well, I tell you, Todd, is there anything else that you can think that our listeners would want to know that we didn't cover that you're thinking might be applicable for everybody at Farm Show / farming world?
Yeah, let's see. Well, I think the good thing for listeners to know is that this is not an easy game, that there is never 100% certainty, whether you're looking at weather or markets. And so don't beat yourself up too bad because you took what looked like good prices and then the market went higher. And in fact, one of the toughest things in all of my market experience has been trying to come even close to picking a top in a bull market. It's so emotional.
Right.
And it's easy to beat yourself up, but don't let that paralyze you from making good sales when you see good price opportunities.
Yeah, I don't think I have to ask you the importance of having a marketing plan or a marketing professional assisting your operation in making some of these decisions, because I think you've already made that very clear in your passion and what you shared with us today that it is. And we talked about our advisory team. So I now want to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Because our listeners like opinions, and it's something that is low risk, even though this is going to come out here after the market has a chance to tell its story. But where do you think we're headed? Let's start corn and then go soybeans, and then we can kind of wrap in the rest of the commodities after that. But start with the corn market. If you could see it playing out in a certain way, what do you think's coming next?
Yeah. On corn, I've predicted a top end of $6.50 a bushel for cash corn prices, and we're a little below that now, but actually fairly close. And typically, corn peaks at the end of May is the traditional seasonal peak. I wouldn't be surprised if it's not going to happen earlier this year. But again, so much uncertainty with that, with all the factors we've been talking about. On soybeans, I thought $14 beans were fantastic, and I ended our old crop bean sales in the $14 region, so it's already above and out of my league right now. There's so much happening bullish for soybeans. 16 to 18 would not surprise me, but at the same time, I'm reluctant to really stretch into these higher prices because I don't want everyone to just sit on their beans and pass up these good opportunities.
I would argue there's not a lot of people sitting on much left. I mean, like I said, we've seen great prices and a lot have been sold.
Yeah.
But I agree, if your debts are paid, your bills are paid, and you have something to sit on your savings account, there should be opportunities that if we don't get to 18 to still sell at a profitable level between now and then. But what about, let's just touch wheat, maybe some crude, just round out, what do you think for kind of some of the rest of these majors?
On wheat, I do expect this Ukrainian situation to lose its fizzle here at some point, and we're going to start focusing on new crop conditions for the next crop coming on. It looks like Russia's going to have a big crop. Their estimates seem to be getting bigger lately for the year ahead. We have the dry weather outlook, not only in the western U.S., but also in the Canadian prairies. It's still quite dry. So I think we're going to be limited on our wheat production. But having said that, I'm not real confident that we're going to return or exceed the highs that we've already seen earlier this year. So I think once this Ukraine thing fizzles out, it would not surprise me to find out that we're going to have wheat prices kind of slowly trading lower in this environment.
Got it. No, that's good. So I'm going to do the summary, Dave.
Now it makes me wonder what land prices are going to do. Maybe he has opinion on that too. I'm kind of getting up.
The old guys tell me, just buy land. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about the price. Just buy land.
Buy land and wait. Don't wait to buy land.
Hey, look at all these. We got all of Dave's sayings coming out. The last one we need to get in here is the juice worth the squeeze?
Is the juice worth the squeeze? Sell now. Because, what I was going to say is if you were going to wait, you were going to hold your commodity, you weren't going to sell it, I know where you can store it. And you can store it with Sukup grain bins all day long.
I got one thing just for perspective where the market's at today, so we can, in the same show here, corn's up 3.5, so front month here is 641.5, new crop 589.9, and soybeans are 1572 right now. New crop dropped down to 1442.
You got to get better with your rhythm on that, Corey.
Well, I mean, it was a last-minute thing.
I get you. I appreciate that, Corey. Thank you very much. I am going to do the summary, Dave, and I'll have you do the challenge.
Very good.
But that's kind of our way to stall because we have a question we ask every one of our guests. So in 2022, we're asking, what do you know now that you wish you'd have known sooner? It doesn't have to be ag-related, job-related. It can be personal life-related. But what do you know now that you wish you'd have known sooner? That either could have benefited you, made life easier, or helped you professionally, whichever it is. So think about that. Listeners, we're down here at the National Farm Machinery Show in 2022, hanging out at the Sioux Cup Manufacturing booth. If you were down here to see us, we appreciate you stopping by. But to let you know here, we talked with Todd Hultman of DTN, talking a little bit about the commodity market and where some of the items are that could drive this one direction or the other. I wrote down fishbowl of tension. That was one of the first things Todd said, and I think it's almost underneath the magnifying glass. It seems like right now we got bigger swings than we've ever seen, and they happen so fast. Feels like there could be more of a bullish market where we're sitting, almost like a wartime economy feeling with a lot of the markets tied to emotion. So pay attention globally, get out of your backyard, and make sure we take all factors into place, whether it's other economies, other conflicts, and other weather. We potentially are looking at another dry season here in a good portion of the production area for the U.S., but don't beat yourself up about selling potentially too early. Todd said, don't judge the quality of the decision that you made by the reaction of the market. If you're selling at a profitable level, you have to be proud about the decision you made. There's nothing wrong with being frustrated. But let's start taking some forward action as to how we can either handle this next crop or how we can correct that position with your trusted advisors. We preached that, I think, about 7 or 8 times on this show, Dave, just this episode, that find a partner. Weather and Ukrainian fear is putting some premium into the soybean market. That's also going to help drive some demand. But don't forget, we're coming out of a pandemic, and as we start to recover in the United States economy format, is also going to have some factors that roll into this. And then, of course, we had the powerful prediction. Corn headed to that 650 potentially. Soybeans are higher than we were expecting. Could go above the 16 to 18 range. But ultimately, start making decisions to reduce your risk, and that will help you be a profitable farmer. So, Todd, what do you think is something that you know now that you wish you'd have known sooner?
Yeah. So this is, that's a great question. And there's so many directions I could go. But in terms of markets, I would say that I wish I would have learned earlier in life to really lower the weight of the fundamental assessments that you hear, whether it's USDA supply and demand estimates or anybody else's supply and demand estimates. That whole fundamental approach, as we mentioned, is really a rear view approach. And it does not keep up with the market that unfolds and changes often in ways we don't expect. The best indicators of future prices to me that I have found so far in my life has been a combination of trend and volatility. Paying attention to what the market is actually trying to tell you. Oftentimes there's more wisdom in that than all the analysis that many of us experts try to put in there.
Oh, that was good. Dave, how about a challenge?
Since we know that money's made in the margins, I would challenge everybody to do what Todd was talking about and make sure you know what is your success story. So don't listen to the neighbors. So my challenge is don't listen to the neighbors. If Corey got $6 and I got $5.95, but I fed my family, I'm doing good, I got my equipment paid for, I'm going on vacation in Florida.
Be proud.
What is your success story? Oftentimes we all, as human beings, as just a male gender, we're competitive and we want to be better. I'm one of those that, hey, I got to be CEO. And I thought, man, what is success? I was actually pretty successful right where I was at. So what is your success story is what I challenge everybody to figure out.
Awesome. And listeners, if you've got any questions for us or any guests that you want to put on this podcast, it's Farm4Profit LLC at gmail.com. We really appreciate you listening to us. Please share us with your friends and family. If you wouldn't mind, head out there to Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Leave us a review. But until next time, have a good one.
Remember, if you aren't farming for profit, you won't be farming for long.